Thank you very much for this kind introduction. My name is Vujačić. Not an easy one, it took me some time to learn it. What I would like to point out, I was born in Yugoslavia. Used to be a huge country, 24 million people, changed the size and name many, many times, and now I represent Montenegro, 650,000 people. And of course I love Honduras. So it was quite an experience, you know, country-wise, and also I was brought up as a Yugoslav to find out towards the end of my career that I'm actually Montenegrin. But this shows exactly what has happened out of one country, which one could say was an example of peaceful coexistence for some time, but later on it turned different avenue. The title of my presentation tonight is Promoting Global Human Values for Human Security and Collaboration. The subtitle is actually more important: From Inner Peace to Universal Peace. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I regard it a great honor and privilege to be asked to address this annual conference on cultural diplomacy on the subject promoting global collaboration, unity and peace through cultural diplomacy. I congratulate the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy for developing a program of such an importance and relevance to today's issues. I'm sure that we will have a productive and inspiring session. Conferences such as this one represent an excellent environment for cooperation and exchange of experiences. This enabling environment in which we exchange ideas and thoughts gives us a unique opportunity for networking and interaction. I assume that we are all here together because we are interested in learning from each other and improving ourselves as human beings to our own benefit and to the benefit of the institutions we belong to, with the overall goal to make this world a better one. We also represent an important part of the civil society and cannot live isolated from the problems of the same. It is therefore partly our duty to try to be the avant-garde force of our societies. Talking about peace in general, ladies and gentlemen, the fundamental is to be at peace with oneself first. Only then can we have relevant role in spreading peace and keeping it. As individuals, we should pursue peace of mind, peace in the family, and peace in our societies. A process of introspection, first and foremost, involves listening to oneself and others. Freedom and morals are values without which inner and outer peace cannot exist. Freedom helps us to take right decisions and to follow them. And our ultimate goal should be working together towards universal purpose and contributing to universal peace worldwide. An evolution under the sign of peace will not only generate economic welfare and safer world, but it will also contribute to the development of individual responsibility and consciousness. Fundamental values such as tolerance, charity, and understanding should be nourishing our societies. Our 21st century is characterized by profound transformation. The globalization of the world economy is followed by the globalization of the world's problems, such as demography, education, security, environment, poverty, etc., and above all, the decline of moral values. If we want to prosper, we must stand on the solid ethical base. Therefore, the need for establishing global ethical standards becomes obvious. Aristotle taught us that a human being is a social animal, and as such, we must live in society. In order to live with each other in peace and harmony, certain rules have to be observed and obeyed too. Therefore, there is yet again a need for the minimum of global ethical standards that make a collective life possible. Otherwise, the humanity will revert to the jungle. Being an integral part of society, we ourselves ought to be examples of good order and regularity, because it is only by our own conduct that we can reasonably expect compliance with it from others. Someone wrote once that true leaders do not relay the message, they are the message. Our future actions must be guided by the lessons learned from the past. At the same time, let us look forward with hope and desire, because the future does not exist without our investing into the present. This is of particular importance nowadays, when our society is faced with crises in many spheres of life which negatively affect the real values. It is our foremost duty to counteract these negative developments in our society and to show the right direction. Time is an essential factor, and in this connection, a useful quotation, I love quotations, I must say, comes to my mind. Listen to this one. I shall pass through this world but once. If, therefore, there can be any kindness I can show, or any good thing I can do, let me do it now. Let me not defer it or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Ladies and gentlemen, the modern world of today is predominantly governed by strong national interests and goals. Common values appear to be of less importance. A global civil ethics should be the guiding principle for our actions. Ethics should precede politics and the law. Ethics should serve as a source of information and inspiration to political leaders. A better global order cannot be created or enforced by laws alone. The action in support of rights and freedoms presumes a conscientiousness of responsibility and duty. Rights without obligations cannot be sustainable, and only with a global ethic we can achieve a better global order. There is a new profile of the human family today. More than half of Earth's population is under the age of 25. By the year 2050, which means in some 30 years, the world's population will rise to 9 billion human beings, mainly in Asia, Africa, and in Latin America, whereas in Europe, the trend is the opposite. This calls for energy and food security, water security, health and climate change initiatives. We shall be judged by future generations for our efforts in the above-mentioned fields. We know that in the human history, the fight for the control of resources is one of the main causes of wars. This fight has been going on for a long time, but with steady depletion of natural resources, it might intensify. It is thus mainly the food crisis, which is the destabilizing factor of universal peace. In another kind of crisis that we are experiencing, it is not the diversity of cultures what is problematic, but it is a constant attempt to divide humanity against itself. The more one points out and nourishes the differences between cultures, the more one destroys its value. The diversities, being religious or cultural, should be considered as an enriching experience and not a confrontational issue. Our aim should be to encourage an open society capable of embracing diversity, accepting the principle of mutual respect and reciprocal tolerance. Our goal should be to educate and shape new generations of young people to work for the advancement and well-being of humanity, respectful of tolerance and multiple cultures, educated to be curious, to engage in dialogue. and to respect and enhance diversity, as well as the interest and desire to broaden their horizons. This also includes our readiness to understand where we had made mistakes or change our point of view when we discover that what we thought was the truth was instead bogus. It therefore follows that education is of paramount importance for us and the coming generations. Only through proper education it will be possible to inculcate global ethical values in the minds of younger generations, the values which have passed the test of time and have a universal character, and as such are equally applicable everywhere on the planet. Education represents also one of the priorities of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals agenda, originally foreseen by 2015, and now refined and extended by 2030, because most of them were not achieved. There is a tremendous potential in education. Education based on ethical values should start from the childhood. This we just heard about Austria and the kindergartens there. It is the seed that we plant. It does not bring immediate benefits. But if we regularly water this plant, this tree will bring fruits for all future generations. Educational curricula, from the primary school to university, should include common global values and promote understanding of other religion than one's own. It is important to emphasize intercultural and intercivilizational dialogue and cultural diversity, thus promoting tolerance. This calls for enhanced ethical principles and values worldwide. Respect for fundamental human rights, social justice, the dignity and worth of the human person, and the equal rights of women and men, and of all nations must be observed. The world is home to a myriad of different peoples, languages, cultures, customs, and traditions. Therefore, tolerance and understanding, with respect for all persons without distinction, should also be exercised. Values like affirmative tolerance should be promoted, and the educational programs and materials should be produced accordingly. An emphasis should be placed on the development of the aspiration of youth, thus creating a solid base for the generations to follow. As I like quotations, what I said before, I would like to share another one with you. Above the bust of Albert Pike in Washington, D.C., a famous writer in the 19th century, there is a following quotation of his. "What we have done for ourselves alone dies with us. What we have done for others and the world remains and is immortal." Ladies and gentlemen, United Nations, although with some weaknesses in inertia that all big organizations might have, is one of the best suited mechanisms to provide sustainable development and peace in the world. The language of culture and science is a common language that binds together many people and researchers of different countries and regions. Cultural diplomacy establishes a channel of communication for intercultural dialogue, understanding, and reconciliation, leading to increased area of cooperation and thus tolerance. The ultimate goal of the above-mentioned activities should contribute to conflict prevention and resolution, regional stability, very important in my part of the world, and security and religious understanding. The United Nations University, UNU, is a global think tank and postgraduate teaching organization with headquarters in Japan. The UNU's mission is to contribute through collaborative research and education to efforts to resolve the pressing global problems of human survival, development, and welfare that are the concern of the United Nations, its people, and member states. The program provides advice to national bodies on the development of school and university curricula and textbooks that emphasize intercultural and intercivilizational dialogue and cultural diversity. On the other hand, we have UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, which is based in Paris. And it has the purpose to contribute to peace and security by promoting international collaboration through education, science and culture in order to further universal respect for justice, the rule of law, and human rights, along with fundamental freedom proclaimed in the United Nations Charter. Nowadays, however, we have also the mass communication that has become one of the most powerful mediums in influencing the minds and behaviors of human beings. However, we are witnessing by much of the media the pollution of the human spirit by violence, triviality, and offenses to intellect. A different approach by some media, such as promoting culture of non-violence and respect for life, culture of solidarity and tolerance, and culture of equal rights and partnership between men and women, would elevate human spirit. Therefore, due attention should be paid to the role of electronic mass media as influential promoter and disseminator of ethical norms. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let me sum up. If you take only one idea from my speech, please remember this. Education, based on global ethical values, is the most powerful weapon that can change the world. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Are there questions? I think we agree all with everything. Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah. No questions. So again,
No questions. Everybody's agreement. Yes, there is one.
One question. Yeah, please.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for coming and speaking. I'm actually a student here at the SED, and I'm originally from the United States.
Nope, nobody's perfect. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, I think it's really important what you're saying, especially about education, and you can actually kind of see it in my own country as well as a lot of countries in Europe where there is actually a lot of movements against, immigration, a lot of movements that are not against understanding other cultures and everything, and I think you could actually honestly say that it was a lack in the system of education for a lot of these people, and especially in the United States, you could say. And so my question to you is, how can we promote global ethical values when a lot of people don't share the same ideas of global ethical values, especially if they don't have contact with them or if they don't have access to them? And if the UN can actually do this, how much role can it actually play? And is it dangerous to say that they would actually install an education system into a sovereign country or anything like that?
Well, UN is definitely, as I said before, the best vehicle for such activity. But you cannot force the countries. I take Yugoslavia as an example. I was brought up in a country where we had one history, all of us, different nations. Now we have 6 or 7 histories. Everybody writes his own history, and it is a disaster because each one of them writes against the neighboring country. So unless there are some people, and I say the politicians should be first led by all these ethical standards, because the politicians are those who want to win the elections, so they don't mind making an enemy nearby. It's always the easiest way, to point at somebody who's your neighbor, because if you don't have a prosperous life, you don't live well, it must be the neighbor's fault. Otherwise, without that neighbor, you would be. It is a never-ending story, and as long as there is humanity, we will have to fight against it. So what I was saying also it's each one of us that would have in his little or her little surrounding try to promote those values, and only like that we can achieve. It's a never-ending job. It will be, as long as humanity exists, we'll have that problem. But you have to try. There is no other way. Otherwise, it would be the wrong one. Thanks.